There are some truths and some misconceptions when it comes to the dangers of riding a motorcycle. This week on MCrider, let's talk about them. Hey, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Kevin. I'm the host at MCrider, where I release a weekly training video every Friday morning to help make you a better rider. We release road strategy and road skills videos to help make you a complete rider on the road. If you're like me, every time you hear a Harley rolling down the road or a sport bike screaming down the road or that turbine sound of an inline four, your head turns around to look to see what kind of motorcycle it is. And new riders can particularly be enthused by the sights and sounds of motorcycles, and it's a very exciting thing. But for a lot of people who dream about owning a motorcycle, and particularly those who ask for motorcycles as kids, they have some old haunting voices that echo in their mind every time they think about getting a motorcycle. And it sounds something like this.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, maybe not you'll shoot your eye out, but you guys get the idea. We've been told that motorcycles are dangerous. This week, let's look at just how dangerous they actually are. I'll give you some bad news and some good news when it comes to motorcycle safety, and we'll look at how you can improve your odds to become a safer rider and do this thing responsibly. If you're new to riding a motorcycle, or you want to be new riding a motorcycle, and you're considering the dangers involved in riding a bike, you're a smart person. Too many people just hop on a motorcycle and hope for the best. You've probably heard the term riding a murder cycle, or there goes another organ donor. And while those types of comments elicit a reaction, they really don't tell us anything about the dangers involved in riding a motorcycle. So let's look at some real-world stats and see what we're really talking about. According to the NHTSA, the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, there were reported 4,976 fatalities on motorcycles in 2015. Out of 8.6 million private and commercially registered motorcycles. Man, 8.6 million. I need to work on my subscriber numbers. That is a 1 in 1,728 chance of dying on a motorcycle. When you compare that to car registrations to motorcycle registrations, we are 6 to 7 times more likely to be involved in a fatal accident. But when you compare vehicle miles traveled, that's how many miles traveled on a motorcycle versus a car, we're 27 times more likely to be involved in a fatal accident. Now, depending on where you get your information from, these statistics can actually vary by quite a bit. So we can't get a totally clear picture, but we can get a general idea of how dangerous it is riding a motorcycle. In doing research for this video, I found an interesting article written by a man named Peter Cheney, and he wrote it for a Canadian paper called the Globe and Mail. In that article titled "Why I Quit Riding a Motorcycle," Peter explains why he gave up riding a motorcycle and what led to his decision to do so. And I want to read portions of that article for you because I found it really interesting. And it gives us a mindset or understanding of his mindset when it comes to deciding that motorcycles were too dangerous for him. So as we look through this article by Peter, I want you to see if you can pick out any key points in the section that I'm reading and see if there are things that Peter could have done to avoid his crash. I knew that motorcycles were dangerous, but considered myself immune. For nearly 20 years, I lived a charmed motorcycle life. In thousands of rides, my worst street crash was a slide that left me a couple of minor scrapes. I did crash several times on the racetrack, but that was part of the game. If you didn't crash, you weren't going fast enough to win. On the street, I was invincible. We'll skip ahead a little bit. He says, then came the summer morning that changed me. The ride would be short, but still a welcome break from the grinding routine of work and childcare. My Yamaha had sticky tires, a racing pipe, and clip-on handlebars like the bikes I used to race. I decided to take Spadina Avenue so I could run through the curves just north of College Street. I clicked down a gear and banked into the first section, carving through it like a low-flying plane. Then it happened. Someone had dumped a load of gravel at the exit, and I was going too fast to miss it. My training and my experience meant nothing now. I was a prisoner of physics, sliding out of control into oncoming traffic. I missed 2 cars, but clipped the back corner of a TTC bus. Now, this was an accomplished rider. Peter states that he had raced motorcycles and had some success. He had a lot of miles under his belt. But I don't believe that accident was caused by the gravel that was in the corner. I think it was caused by years of complacency and riding on the street like he was riding on the track. This accident was caused by, in the rider's own words, he was invincible on the street. It was a rider who, by his own admission, was riding through the corner too fast to avoid the gravel. And then it sounds as if our rider was surprised that his own experience and training was not enough to avoid the crash. See, I believe Peter only had half the picture, and probably not even half, I'd say 40% of the equation, because Peter was relying on his training and his skills on the track to save him on the street. Well, riding on the street also requires a very important thing called road strategy. And that's why we preach here on MCrider skills and strategy, because those 2 things are what's going to keep you upright on the street. Now, I'll never come down on anybody who decides that riding is not for them. Maybe they decide it's not worth the risk. Maybe they decide they're not getting the enjoyment from it that they thought they would. Or maybe, as it sounds like here in Peter's case, they weren't able to control the throttle hand and they were putting themselves at risk, or more risk than they should, on the street. So I'll never come down on a rider who decides it's not for them. And if you're one of those riders as well, maybe riding is not for you either. But now let's get to the good news, because if you're a person that has an itch to ride and nothing's going to scratch that itch but riding a motorcycle, what can you do to make yourself safer or to increase the odds of coming out of a ride in one piece? So we've determined that riding a motorcycle can be dangerous, and if you just look at the statistics on their face value, any logical person would say, yeah, riding a motorcycle requires some risk. But just like calling them motorcycles or organ donors, it doesn't give us a complete picture. So let's look at some statistics and find out why people are crashing their motorcycle. So here's some hard facts about motorcycle crashes. 33% of riders killed were a direct result of excessive speed. 40% of riders killed were not wearing a helmet. In 2016, 25% of motorcyclists killed had a blood alcohol content over the legal limit. Over 40% killed had alcohol in their system. In Texas, about half of all riders on the road do not have a license, meaning they have no training. Sport bike riders are 4 times more likely to die than any other types of bikes. Does that mean sport bikes are bad? No. It means that riders of sport bikes need to be more responsible. Motorcycles with ABS have a significantly lower accident rate. Motorcycles are harder to see than cars, and cars pull out in front of them. So maybe that black motorcycle gear is not so cool after all. Now, I realize that to a certain extent here I'm preaching to the choir, because just for the fact that you're here watching MCrider videos means that you care about your safety and you care about becoming a better rider. But it's my hope and my intention that these videos will get shared and they'll be spread across YouTube and they'll reach people that haven't necessarily thought about what they can do to improve their odds of staying upright on a bike. So let's answer the question that we all came here for. Are motorcycles dangerous? Well, the simple answer to that is yes. They do carry a higher risk than riding in a car. But there's a whole lot more that goes into that answer that the drive-by media and the people calling them motorcycles don't really understand, because there's a lot that you can do to reduce the odds of you being involved in an accident. Because while the statistics show that almost 5,000 people in 1 year died on a motorcycle, we also showed that many of those riding had alcohol in their system. Many of them were legally intoxicated. Many of them weren't wearing a helmet. Many of them had no training. Many of them were riding at excessive speeds. All of those things are under our control, and all of those things can reduce the likelihood of us being involved in an accident. I mean, that's why I do this thing. That's why MCrider is important to me, because a lot of people don't think before they get on a motorcycle. A lot of people ride their motorcycle just like they do a car. They'll get right up behind the car in front of them and ride on the bumper with no visibility to see up the road. There's a lot of things that we can do to improve our odds of being safe on a motorcycle, and yet many riders don't do it. And they add to those statistics of fatalities on the road, and they create this perception that if you ride a motorcycle, you're just waiting to die. And I don't think it has to be that way. That's why I do this. That's why I release a video every Friday morning here on MCrider that is either about motorcycle skills or road strategy. Now, combining those two things are not going to make you invincible on the street like our writer thought he was, but they are going to greatly reduce the odds of you being involved in an incident. I'm passionate about riding a motorcycle. I'm passionate about doing it right. I'm passionate about the people who ride motorcycles because I believe it's the best means of transportation ever invented. It's the best thing that I do for myself, is riding a motorcycle. And I believe that we can all do it safer, and we can all enjoy a whole lot more miles without incidents by applying basic strategy and road skills to our repertoire. And if you believe in what I'm doing here, I want you to hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost anything. You'll get a training video every Friday morning. You can sign up for our email newsletter at MCrider.com, where we'll send our videos to you in email every Friday morning. And if you really believe in what we're doing and you want to get access to the field guide to improve your skills, go to MCrider.com/support, and you can support us on Patreon and help keep this channel going. So I've got some exciting things for supporters of MCrider on Patreon. We're reworking the field guide and adding some new exercises, and I'm getting ready to have forums available for patrons as well. So we've got nearly 100,000 subscribers to MCrider. But we know in the U.S. alone there's 8.6 million registered motorcycles. And that says nothing about all of our friends in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, South America that subscribe and support this channel, and the millions of motorcycles that are available in all these other countries. We're just getting started. There are a whole lot more riders to reach, because road skills and road strategy work. And I'm going to keep preaching that every Friday morning, and I appreciate all of you who have supported me to this point. And if you haven't subscribed and you haven't signed up for our email newsletter, I hope that you'll do that, and I hope that you'll support the channel, because MCrider is making a difference. Man, I'm excited about that, but we got a long ways to go. And I'm excited to see what the future holds for MCrider as we do this thing right, as we create more responsible riders, and we make motorcycling more safe and enjoyable for a larger number of people. Till next week, guys, this is Kim with MCrider, and we'll see you on the road. MCrider is supported by our friends on Patreon. To learn how to support MCrider and get access to the field guide, go to MCrider.com/support.